Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life. And in today's video, we're going to be reviewing the second of the Wallace and Gromit short films, that of course being The Wrong Trousers.
It's the wrong trousers, Gromit.
I think that this short film is really great because, well, for one thing, at least in my eyes, it's the short film that cemented Wallace and Gromit as a great franchise because the story of this short film actually was really good. It also had a very unique concept, not to mention the fact that it actually had one of Aardman's most iconic villains ever. But I think it's time that we take a step back and look at the animation. Honestly, the animation for this short film is really good, at least in terms of 1990s standards, as this film was released back in the year 1993, a total of 4 years after the previous film, which I guess the previous Wallace and Gromit film, A Grand Day Out, did so well that Aardman decided to make a sequel, and they actually hired a lot of help, so Nick Park wasn't doing it all by himself. But the animation definitely took an upgrade when it came to making this movie compared to A Grand Day Out, and I think that's really cool. And then we come to the voice acting. Honestly, I both like and hate the voice acting for a couple reasons. First off, Peter Sallis does a really good job at Wallace, but at the same time, he doesn't really show a lot of emotion. But you know what? That's just Wallace's character, so it makes sense. Unlike Gromit, who shows a lot of emotion in this movie. In fact, I might say a little too much, because the thing is, I know Gromit is a dog, but in this short film, he's growling and whimpering like a dog, which I think that's okay. But I grew up with the film The Curse of the Were-Rabbit as the only Wallace and Gromit thing I ever watched, so it was kind of unsettling to hear sounds coming out of Gromit. And I get that this film was made first, so it makes sense, but honestly, I think Gromit without any noises whatsoever is better than having him actually make some dog-like noises. And then there's the music for this movie, which I really enjoyed, but at the same time, I felt like it was kind of too obvious what they were trying to do. At the beginning of the movie, when we're introduced to the villain, he's supposed to be this unassuming character, but the music just makes him feel unsettling, which, yeah, that's kind of his whole thing, but at the same time, it ruins that big twist reveal that he's supposed to be the major villain, which literally happens 5 minutes later, so okay, I feel like I've talked enough about the story without actually getting into it, so let's discuss. First off, we're introduced to Wallace and Gromit, who get a load of bills in the mail, and Wallace is having trouble coming up with a way to pay them, especially after getting a couple of presents for Gromit's birthday, including a collar, a leash, and a robot trouser. Hence the title, The Wrong Trousers. So, Gromit and the Robo-Trousers go for a walk, during which Gromit manages to trick the Robo-Trouser into walking a papier-mâché dog on a skateboard, and he just chills at the park, and then they come back to find that Wallace has come up with a solution to their bill problems by renting out one of their rooms to a customer so that he can make some money on the side. And the first customer that comes along is a penguin named Feathers McGraw. And Feathers is actually a really unsettling character. Unlike Gromit, who expresses a ton of emotion in just his facial expressions alone, not to mention his body language, we see blank expressions from Feathers the entire time. Basically, he's meant to be an anti-Gromit, which is great because throughout the film, he's actually trying to replace Gromit. First, Wallace introduces him to the attic where he'll be staying, at which point Feathers decides to move into Gromit's room. So Gromit is forced to move into the attic, and while they're decorating, Gromit uses the Robo-Trousers to help paint the ceiling and walls, which actually catches the attention of Feathers. At which point Feathers plays a bunch of really loud music that forces Gromit to move out of the attic and into the living room, then out of the house into his doghouse. And when that happens, Feathers turns off the music, which makes it so that Gromit is forced outside of the house, has a sleepless night, and it's really getting to him. And then in the morning, he's super tired, which allows Feathers to take over Gromit's chores, like grabbing Wallace's slippers and the newspaper. And when that happens, Gromit decides that since he's being replaced, he should move out of the house. So he packs up his stuff and leaves. At which point, Feathers begins enacting his evil plan. First, he sneaks into the garage and makes some modifications to the robo-trousers by tearing out the controls. Then he forces Wallace to get into them using Wallace's bed contraption. And then Wallace is forced to walk around the city, and this tires him out. In the process, he reunites with Gromit, who is trying to find a new place to live when he sees a wanted poster for a very familiar-looking chicken. But when he sees that Wallace is in danger, he tries to find the cause and discovers that Feathers is using the controls to make Wallace run around the entire city. And when he does, Wallace ends up getting so tired that when Feathers makes Wallace lay down in bed, he falls right asleep. But it wasn't just about making Wallace tired. It was a test run to see how well the robo-trousers would work. Because the next thing we see, Gromit is spying on Feathers, who is measuring the layout of a museum so that later that night, he can use the robo-trousers to make Wallace steal a diamond from the museum. And while there's the typical hijinks like laser wire tripping, he ends up pulling off the heist with almost no problems. And then when they return home, Feathers McGraw sheds his chicken disguise.
Good grief, it's you!
Feathers is about to get away with his plan until Gromit decides to stop him. And when that happens, all three of them get into a train sequence where they are fighting on a model train, and for some reason, they never seem to run out of track. Even when they do run out of track, Gromit grabs a box of spare tracks and then constantly lays down fresh tracks, and honestly, I really like that Gromit is smart enough to do that, but at the same time, it's kind of unbelievable. How is there that much room for that much tracks? But anyway, the battle or chase scene ends with Feathers' train crashing, and then Feathers himself lands in a milk bottle, and so Wallace and Gromit turn him into the authorities, as well as return the diamond to the museum, and the reward money makes it so that they have enough to pay their bills and then some. And after throwing away the robo-trousers, all of their troubles are gone. Until the robo-trousers end up walking out of the trash can and then walks off into the sunset until, I'm assuming, the batteries die. Or maybe it's self-operating? I don't know. But anyway, I feel like that this is actually one of the best Wallace and Gromit short films out there. In fact, aside from maybe Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, it might be the best installment so far, because as we all know, they're coming out with a 6th movie called Vengeance Most Foul, which stars the return of, you guessed it, Feathers McGraw. Which makes sense because Feathers is actually one of the most iconic villains in Aardman history because, well, he's kind of made cameo appearances in a lot of media, including other Wallace and Gromit shorts, not to mention the film that acknowledged where he got the idea to dress up as a chicken.
Ready, everyone?
Ready!
Ready!
Cock-a-doodle-doo!
Did you catch it? No? Okay, I'll zoom in. So, Chicken Run is supposed to take place before Wallace and Gromit in the 1950s, while Wallace and Gromit is going for more of a 1970s or 80s aesthetic. Which I guess technically means that Feathers McGraw was inspired by the characters of Chicken Run to dress up as a chicken so that he could commit crimes. And I honestly cannot wait to see what crimes he commits when his new movie, Vengeance Most Foul, releases on Netflix sometime in December 2024, most likely. But until then, make sure that you subscribe so that you can keep up to date on all things DreamWorks and so that you can watch my reviews for Wallace and Gromit projects when they eventually come out. Until then, make sure that you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
Excuse me? Hello? I think so too. Hey!